So one time specifically comes to mind when I was working in Chile. We, working like super long days, right? It's during harvest.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we had some visitors from Gallo from the United States who were here. And we met as a team, the whole group. So, right, there's some Spanish speakers, there's non-Spanish speakers. And the minute, right, like the food gets put on the table, there's a bottle of like Carmenere that's put on the table, and we're just sharing wine, we're sharing food, we're sharing stories, conversations. It's like, it doesn't matter. We're all coming from different backgrounds, right? We speak different languages, and like all of that just kind of goes out the window. And it really makes you appreciate how much wine and food brings people together to share a moment, right? So to me, it's so special.
Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. This is the next generation with me, McKenna Cassidy. For the next episode, I invite you to explore with me what young adults are up to in the Italian wine scene. Let's feast on our discussion of Italian wine and culture. Grab a glass with us. Chin chin. Welcome everyone. I'm McKenna from the Italian Wine Podcast Next Generation segment, and I'm so excited to be joined by Becca Siefring today. And it is such a treat because Becca has a really interesting story growing up with her family in the US, but also making cheese and now making wine for J Vineyards and Offscript. So it'll be really cool to learn from her about the California wine industry, about viticulture there, everything from regulation to brand management and creativity. And I just think it'll be a fascinating conversation. So welcome, Becca. So good to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Thank you. Where are you calling in from? Where is your home today?
Yeah, I am calling from my home in Santa Rosa. So beautiful. I am just a hop, skip, and a jump from Jay.
I love it. And Jay's tucked up in the Russian River Valley, right?
Yes. It's in Healdsburg. Yep.
Beautiful. And I know there's a Santa Rosa airport, so it's easy to get in and out of the area. People forget.
People forget. I know. We were just asked this question the other day. What is something about this area that most people don't know and you'd like to share it with them? And Nicole was like, yeah, we have the Santa Rosa airport, which is great. So you can fly in direct and you're right in the heart of it all. So
it is beautiful. No need to go San Francisco, 2 hours, rent a car. You can just fly right into town, which is beautiful.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So help us get to know you. Talk to us about where you were born, what your family was like, and kind of what food and drink meant to you in your home, and maybe your curiosity about flavor and how that began.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So I grew up outside of Philadelphia in southern New Jersey, and food and drink, honestly, it was just such a big part of my childhood. Really was always about bringing people together. And my mom loved to cook and host family and friends. And I learned by watching her. And I was really encouraged, I would say, from a young age to just taste everything that she made and try everything. Family gatherings and meals with friends were always centered on good food and tasting new dishes. And yeah, so I feel like my curiosity about food and flavor felt pretty natural. And what began as from a childhood expectation, I feel like evolved into this lifelong fascination with how ingredients and cooking techniques and culture, how they all mesh together. Yeah. So I ended up studying food science, and that was kind of, some the backbone of why I found that so interesting. So
that is awesome. Where did you study and how did you find that program?
Yeah, I studied it at University of Maryland. And at first I thought I always knew I wanted to go into sciences. So I first thought maybe medicine, but, I took a nutritional class and kind of started to fall in love from there as well. And so nice. I found out they had a food science program, and I took a manufacturing class and was like, this is it. This is definitely what I want to do. Yeah.
It's cool how this topic, especially for food and wine people, it kind of captivates your heart. And it's your heart, your mind is kind of responding to, and a lot of times it comes as a surprise. You never went in looking exactly for food science, but knowing that you had gifts for it, it's amazing how it kind of pops up and feels so true.
Totally. I know. Yeah. And also it's not at least at the time, it wasn't a really popular major to go into. Like the program was fairly small at the time. So now it's gotten a lot bigger. But yeah, at the time it wasn't like this big, well-known, area of study. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. So
yeah.
then I know in your story it includes something to do with cheese. Can you
Yes.
talk me through like post-graduation or internship or post like job, how that came about and what was that like?
Yes. So while I was at Maryland, I was looking around. I knew I wanted to get into manufacturing of some sort, like where everything was actually happening, like, you know. And so I ended up applying for a few places, and the company's called Schreiber Foods, but I got an interview with them. And I remember they were like, well, we have multiple locations. Like, what we were thinking is maybe you could come out to Utah. And so I ended up flying out to Utah, and like that was kind of the start of it all. So I've essentially been away from the East Coast of my family since then. But I started there in operations, and essentially I worked like the grave shift for like 2 years but learned so much from that. Yeah, it was a really, really good experience for me.
Okay, so Schreiber, they do like cheese things, like
Yes,
natural
they
cream
do.
cheese,
Yeah.
beverages, yogurt, dairy in many formats.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I think they've grown now too. Now they're getting more into drinks as well, like protein drinks and stuff. So
Okay. I mean,
yeah,
it makes sense to
yeah,
do that. It's only a matter of time till we come back to fiber, but we know that we need many grams of protein. All the
true.
world is motivated now
It's
to
true.
get as much protein as possible. No, that's super interesting. Were you exposed to wine yet at this time, or was mostly like cheese culturing, also production? You were focused on the science of the production. You weren't focused on other matters of the business. At this time, it was more like how we're crafting this product and your involvement with that.
hmm Yeah, at this point in time, I would say I'd always had a passion for wine.
Yeah.
So in southern New Jersey, there was a small winery that I actually interned at,
Oh,
and just never thought of it as a viable career option for
yeah.
me. I also think the East Coast the mentality is just very different, right? Like versus California, and the production is really different too. And so
Yeah.
I had always been passionate about it, and I really learned through my dad. It's like one of his biggest hobbies, and
Okay.
he's really interested in wines from all over the world. And I would always taste with my family, and yeah, so I just at the time I didn't realize that it was such a viable option. And then once I was in Wisconsin, so I lived in Utah and then I moved to Wisconsin within the dairy,
Mhm.
I started to research it more, and I was like, oh, no, like this could very well happen and I could pursue this. And I don't know, in my head, I think I was thinking if I don't do it now, I don't know when I'm going to do it. So I decided I made the jump.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
what form did that jump take? You moved to California, or there was a specific role that brought you into the wine?
Yeah, so I moved to California. I applied and interviewed for a few positions within Gallo, specifically within the quality region or realm. And one was in microbiology, the other was a quality manager position. And I ended up taking the quality manager position. And then I moved out to California, and I've been here now for like a little over 7 years. So,
Okay,
yeah.
wonderful. So that was
Mhm.
in Dry Creek Valley that you were the quality manager.
Yes.
And then what was your day to day like in that role?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say I led a team of folks in the analytical lab side, but also the micro side, and, quality department in general to make sure that our wines were safe and met standards that we set. Some of that was like leading audits, internal audits, external audits. If something wasn't quite right, for instance, like we would put a plan in place to make sure that we could correct those issues. But what I really loved about that job was how much I was able to collaborate with different groups. So, like working with operations and winemaking and engineering to solve
Yeah.
problems. Like problem solving is really fun for me. So that was one of my favorite parts of the job.
This is awesome. So we jump to current, and you are associate winemaker at J Vineyards and Winery, which was
Yes.
the role that followed your QM role. And then you're also working on the Offscript project. You mentioned someone named Nicole earlier. That's
Yeah.
Nicole Hitchcock.
Yes.
She was the winemaker emeritus of J Vineyards, to my knowledge.
Uh-huh.
So for those who don't know, I think so J Vineyards was founded by Judy Jordan, and she had gone to France to learn how to make sparkling wine because her father was known for making big bold reds in California, and she was like, I just need a different path. So anyway, J Vineyards is now a premier sparkling house in the Russian River Valley of California. And Becca, it's so cool that you're associate winemaker. So talk to us about, like, yeah, you were making cheese, then you were doing quality management. Like, how did you get into the actual production of wine? What was that kind of, did you have any mentors that led you there, or you just gravitated by your own study to get to that? You clearly knew how to run an operation at that point already. And why J?
Yeah. So while I was in quality, so I worked with a few different wineries within the region. So it was a regional position. And so I worked really closely with the J team already and found sparkling process so interesting. I remember having one-on-ones with Nicole at that time too, and like asking her like, oh, how can I get more knowledge? I remember reading, like I read a bunch of champagne books, like sparkling production books, learning about like the different methods and yeah, so one of the harvests, actually this was in 2021, one of the winemakers at the time was out. And so I raised my hand and just like jumped at the opportunity. I was like, hey, I remember talking with my manager at the time and I said, hey, would it be okay if I, subbed in during harvest and helped them out? And like the answer was yes. And so I essentially stayed like ever since then. And I like just absolutely fell in love with the process, like with the hands-on aspect. And yeah, it was like, I just loved it.
That was so cool. So you fell in love with that. And then that's so awesome. Can you, for someone who doesn't know, in like 30 seconds, give us the sparkling wine, the traditional method that you use?
Yeah, so we pick the grapes, we make a base wine like you would make any wine. And then essentially what we're doing is adding sugar and we're adding a yeast culture. We make a yeast culture and essentially starting a second fermentation. But that second fermentation is happening in bottle. So we add the sugar, we add the yeast, we bottle it, and it ferments in bottle. And then it ages for X amount of years, right? Like depending on what style you want. And, depending on how long you age it, it really can change your style of wine.
That was beautiful. Well, you are.
Thank you.
You are
Thank
a
you.
pro. So this is so cool. So Russian River Valley, known for being foggy, those cooler mornings because the fog's leaving later. We've got some hills in there that are locking in those early morning clouds, but then known for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay specifically because of this cooler climate, and then the soil composition really supports that. But because of the nature of the podcast, I also want to lean in on Offscript a little bit. I'd love to hear kind of how you got involved with that, and then we'll talk about the wine you're making, which sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know if many people know like the story behind Offscript, but it's really a program that Gallo has started. It really acts as like an art studio, I would say, like an idea studio, an idea hub for less senior winemakers. So winemakers who are newer out in their career. And essentially what we do is you can apply for this and you come up with an idea of a wine that you want to make. And you do a whole pitch and the whole thing of how it's going to appeal to the market and why it's different. Like, why do we want to make this wine? And so I ended up applying for that. And I wanted to make a Cortese wine. And I was super excited. I remember I was actually in Chile. I was working abroad for a harvest in Chile during the pitch process. And I was so excited when I found out that I was chosen. I was like over the moon. So yeah, so this is the first, actually vintage 25 was the first year that I'm making the commercial product. I did a trial run in 24, but that wine wasn't sold. So
got it. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of like Shark Tank. Like you put your idea together. Gallo has a bunch of budding winemakers and you're able to build a creative idea. Like I know there's a few different SKUs already on the market, like the Pet Nat Pinot Noir. From John and Merkel, and the Veneto Albarino Chardonnay blend, and also the Carbonic Zinfandel. Yeah. Molly, I got to chat with. Molly Feltz is the winemaker for that wine, and she and her husband love to just go picnicking and with their dogs. So anyway, pretty cool to hear just the personal stories behind these wines. And so what drew you to Cortese? There were vines that you knew you wanted to work with, or you had a dream of Cortese from a a long time ago, or what was that like?
So there were a few things that kind of drew me to Cortese. One, I had visited Piemonte and had really enjoyed the varietal while I was out there, but also that area is just stunning and beautiful, and they make lots of amazing wines. And I have had the opportunity to work with Dan Petrosky, who is the winemaker behind Masakan. So we partner together. I've gotten to work with him on his wines, and I actually tasted Cortese with him. And I remember tasting and I was like, man, like we don't make a single varietal Cortese, but it's really good. And I feel like Cortese is kind of the like supporting actor in most of,
Yeah.
most wines in
I
general.
mean,
And like
unless
it's
you're
not
drinking Gavi, like it's always a
right.
blending partner. Like even Masakan Pinot Grigio, it's like 20% Cortese, which adds like a great volume and mid palate lift. But
Hmm.
yeah, the few, especially domestically, there's only a handful of single variety expressions.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. The idea came to my mind. I'm like, why don't maybe she can be the star of the show, you know?
I love
And
that.
so, so I kind of that's the route I ended up taking, and
So
yeah,
what's the wine called? Does it have a name?
yeah, Vino Versa.
Vino Versa, which means,
Essentially, the way I was going with that is like it's super versatile. So,
oh yeah,
like it's very food friendly. Honestly, like when I drink it, I want to eat, and
yeah.
so it's meant to be a versatile wine.
And it's 100% Cortese. There's no blending grapes.
There's a very, very small percentage of Albarino that I put in this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, majority of it is Cortese.
Yeah, that's so cool. And you're doing steel and like time on the lees or just
So it's a mix. I ferment in stainless. I also ferment in barrel. Actually, barrel
hmm
Cortese like loves barrel, and
mm.
the expression's really beautiful. So I'm doing like a mix of 1 year old oak and some neutral oak, and yeah, and aging in tank.
So you're fermenting in barrel steel and aging
Yep,
in steel.
yep.
And the barrel, does it offer like roundness and savory characteristics to like an already like bright fruity wine?
more so texture more so texture, which is kind of why too I didn't want to pick like anything new, like I didn't want new oak impact or anything like that, but the neutral oak, it really helps with the texture, and that's kind of
Yeah.
what I was after. I wanted like that fleshy texture,
Sure.
roundness, something that's super food friendly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. It's so exciting, and I think Offscript is just a great brand to help make new friends of wine. I know my friends love
Yeah.
Offscript. It's only available in a few states in the country, but with hopeful expansion, and we're so excited next year to get your wine. I also love Cortese, and I was wondering if you would be willing to share just it as a vine. So, like, say we're students of wine, and what is the shape of the vine in comparison to perhaps more familiar varieties like Pinot Grigio or Sauvignon Blanc? What is the berry size like, the bunches, etc., and how does it express itself?
Yeah, for sure. So Cortese is actually pretty big. It could almost be mistaken, I think, for table grapes. Like they're pretty big vines, sturdy vines, and even the clusters themselves are a lot bigger. The berries themselves are not bunched so tightly; they're looser, which is great. Lots of airflow, right? It helps with disease prevention and everything. But yeah, the berries themselves are a lot bigger.
Wonderful. And then what bricks do you harvest at, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, roughly 21 and a half, 22
Okay.
bricks.
And are
Mhm.
these planted in Russian River Valley too, or are these more south?
Yeah, these are in Clarksburg, like right by the Delta. And
Okay.
yeah, so all the fruits from Lost Slough Vineyard in Clarksburg,
Okay.
California. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Let's briefly touch on how a person would like enjoy the wine you
Hmm.
made, perhaps with food, or you said it was a food wine, so any food
Absolutely.
pairings?
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of food, I think it's a very like fresh food partner, I think. So
Yeah.
maybe, like lighter pastas, seafood, I think would be delicious to pair it with.
Yeah.
Like some cheeses, probably too, I would say. Anything with like also minerality. I find the wine which is why I also love it so much. It has such a salinity, like
Yeah.
minerality component to it that I think you could really blend or really, enjoy any type of fresh food with that wine.
Nice. Do projects like Offscripts change how new or younger drinkers would engage with wine? What do you think about the branding of Offscript in particular? And
Yeah.
then, yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think projects like Offscript, like are changing how newer and younger drinkers discover wine. So in general, I think, right, the portfolio of Offscript is like they're lighter wines, they're food friendly, and we're pairing them with like really clear, relatable stories too. And I feel like you mentioned it in the beginning, right? But transparency is such a big part of Offscript and being able to see the process, right? So consumers get to see a glimpse into what it's like to make the wine. And I think that resonates with a lot of younger drinkers. Yeah, I also think just with modern packaging and the whole thing, I think it really.
There's really nothing hidden here, which I think provides like a sense of hospitality in the wine. What do you wish like consumers better understood about what it takes to like produce a bottle?
Oh, yeah. So not specific to Offscript, definitely wine in general, that it's never just one person. Like so many hands are touching the process of making wine, right? Like from vineyard to the cellar to whoever made the barrels, right? Like the coopers who made the barrels to bottling the wine to marketing the wine, right? I think it's just such an act of love and a process of love and time and patience that like a lot goes into it.
That's beautiful and so true. What's a moment that you've experienced while you're at J, perhaps, where you saw like a meal and wine like truly bring people together, or an experience you've had in your career where you were like, wow, like this is kind of why we do this?
Yeah. So one time specifically comes to mind when I was working in Chile. We, working like super long days, right? It's during harvest. And at the end of the day, we had some visitors from Gallo from the United States who were here. And we met as a team, the whole group. So, right, there's some Spanish speakers, there's non-Spanish speakers. And the minute, right, like the food gets put on the table, there's a bottle of like Carmenere that's put on the table, and we're just sharing wine, we're sharing food, we're sharing stories, conversations. It's like, it doesn't matter. We're all coming from different backgrounds, right? We speak different languages, and like all of that just kind of goes out the window. And it really makes you appreciate how much wine and food brings people together to share a moment, right? So to me, it's so special.
That's really well said. We're literally coming to a level plane. Like everyone's sitting, like the chairs are all the same height. Like the table's the same height for everyone.
Yes, exactly.
And there's something to be said about everyone drinking the same thing. I think like sometimes when I'm out with my friends now, everyone's like getting different things, or even at my house, or actually a lot of parties, I would say, that are thrown amongst people I know, at least. It's always like, I'm gonna have a house beverage, but BYO. And I'm like, what? or like, but bring whatever you want to share. And I'm like, wait, who's hosting this? Like, is it us? Is it you? There's like a level of, it feels like a lack of commitment to like the hospitality, or a lack of commitment to like the uniting feature of coming together, and no diss on any host or any friend who wants to have friends over, do your thing. But I'm just saying, my personal thought is like, let's like drink the same thing. Like I'm going to open 4 bottles total. There's going to be 2 bottles open of the same wine. Like we're going to be kind of like sharing together. And there's something to be said about like pouring for a friend and pouring for yourself, like from the same bottle. I think that also unites whatever, the dining experience, the hangout experience. I'm all for BYO, FYI, but like there's some occasions that almost call for, let's share the same wine. Like we're in this moment together. We're sharing this moment together. Like it just reinforces, I think, that communal aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Plus it's fun to share conversations, right, about the wine, and
absolutely.
Then how we learn. It's
totally.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Becca, I love your perspective, and like you've seen a lot of different parts of the world. You've seen a lot of different parts of the food and beverage industry. So what excites you, perhaps where the wine industry itself is headed?
So I would say really just trying to get more experimental, right, with different varietals and different techniques. And right, we're trying to appeal to different consumers and meet the consumers where they're at. And so I think there's lots of innovation happening within the wine industry in general, whether it's different packaging formats, again, like I said, different varietals, or healthier, right? Too, like if it's de-alc or low alc or lower calorie or whatever it is. And I think the other thing that I'm really excited about is trying to kind of pivot to a more casual approach of wine. In some ways, I think that can oftentimes turn people off of wine. Just, it's known to be, I think the wine industry, right, and wine in general kind of has this idea of like, oh, it's, a reputation for being stuffy maybe sometimes and like not super approachable. And maybe people don't understand a ton about wine and they feel a little bit intimidated. So I think the route we're going is really to make it more inviting and hopefully more casual for people, to invite people in and to, make new friends, right, of wine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well said. That's great. It feels like, a pursuit of like a level of familiarity with wine.
yeah.
Like, oh, this is my wine. Like, I'm good. I'm going to enjoy that. And I feel like because the market is so saturated, especially where everyone lives, there's just this influx of brands and bottles, and how can I walk through 3 aisles of the grocery store and like try to pick something, where I'm thinking, maybe in human history, like we had one wine to drink in our house, and like that was the only one. And so there's this familiarity that perhaps has been lost in wine because of the influx of brands or just saturation of the market.
Yeah.
And so, hopefully that creativity and that simplicity or frankness or transparency allows for that familiarity again in some way.
Totally. Yeah, I agree.
That's awesome. Ready for rapid fire?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready for rapid fire.
Okay, just like whatever comes to your head. Ready?
Okay.
Okay. One piece of advice for someone entering wine.
Do not be afraid to ask questions. Like, I think sometimes it can be really intimidating when you're with a bunch of really knowledgeable winemakers. Get your hands dirty, ask questions, be on the floor. Don't be nervous to ask questions. And also taste, because that's how you learn. That's how you learn.
Yeah. Be not afraid. Your favorite wine region outside of California?
It's a hard question. Northern Italy, like Piemonte, probably just because of its diversity, like Nebbiolo, Barbera, Moscato d'Asti. You also can, you're a hop, skip, and a jump from Franciacorta, which is amazing.
It is gnarly. Yes. It's so true. Wait, sidebar. Have you been to Franciacorta?
No. Okay. So I would love to go.
I would love to come with you when you go.
Yeah. Okay. Let's plan this actually.
That would be awesome.
Let's plan this. When I was in Piemonte, we didn't end up getting over there, but it was on my list. I was like, I really want to go. But
I also haven't been, but the Franciacorta like marketing team is just amazing. Like I was in Sicily doing like an intensive Etna course for 3 days, and like then the Franciacorta team shows up, and like we did like a 2-hour seminar on Franciacorta.
Oh, that's like, amazing.
This is awesome. It's super random and out of context, but like so perfect for this time because I needed some bubbles. Anyway, they're amazing wines, and I think highly underrated, which is cool.
So we should go there. I think we should go there and do like a little, maybe we do a pod from there and like, do tasting. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
This would be, that's a good call. And with the Vinitaly Connect shout out that we can meet some wineries. That would be very cool. Okay. I'll pack my bags. Okay. Best destination for food and wine in your town.
Santa Rosa specifically, probably like Railroad Square area. Like there's lots of restaurants in that area, lots of walkable, wine bars and stuff you can go to. But there's also this restaurant that I love. It's called Spinster Sisters, and it's not far from Railroad Square. They have a really amazing menu. Like their wine list is also just really unique and very thoughtful. And yeah, I'd highly recommend it.
Where do you go get a glass of wine after work, or you're kind of tapped because you've been
okay? Well, so I would say my house, but
I have wine. I don't know. That's literally how I feel too.
I'm like, I don't know. I feel like because when I buy wine too, like it's a hobby, right? So like when I go out and I buy wine, I'm always looking for new wines. So I like trying new wines, and I know that I have it at my house.
And you have it, and you found it.
If I had to pick an actual place, I would probably say Willie's Wine Bar in Santa Rosa. It's great. Actually, I just went last night. I met a friend that I had seen in a while, and we tried some different wines, and yeah, it's a good vibe over there.
That's so cool. Okay, last question. What's a hobby you have that's not related to food and wine?
Ooh, I would say like just moving my body in general. I really love Pilates. I love hiking. It just makes me feel really good. And I find that like days that I'm not running or doing something active, like I can feel it mentally, physically. So for me, it's really important. Yeah, staying active.
Well, I can't thank you enough for sharing your expertise and your stories and your enthusiasm on this podcast. I'm so excited to listen back to it, and I just know everyone will be blessed by hearing it. So thank you, listeners, for tuning in, and thank you, Becca, for sharing your time with us today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, we should follow up on the French Quarter trip, right?
I'm frankly I'm pretty serious about this. This is awesome news. And is there anything else that you wanted to share with the listeners before we break?
I don't think so. Like, drink wine, taste wine, support us, right? Support wine and put your phones down and drink more wine.
With your friends. Amen. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll follow up on this trip planning as well. Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks.
Tante grazie. Thanks so much for being here with me today. Remember to catch our episodes weekly on the Italian Wine Podcast, available everywhere you get your pods. Salute.